Waiting for Facebook to go live as well. Cool bananas. Okay, we've got it on. Hello world, fellow sisters and brothers in humanity. How are you doing all? I'm trying for the first time now to do an Instagram and Facebook live at the same time. So excuse me if I'm messing around with some of the buttons and lights every now and then. All right, so I thought I'll do this live video to answer some of the questions that you may have for me, but two specific general broad questions that have kept coming up lately that I'm responding to my messages and calls and all these things based on some of the things that I said and mentioned in amongst many videos and writings that I've shared lately. The topics that I was asked about on some of the live interviews and the webinars that we've done with multiple colleagues over the last 2 weeks. Many of those questions that I was given, obviously, I had 30 seconds, 1 minute to answer them before we went to the next question. Some of them, there was multiple speakers on there. So of course I had to respect the other speakers' time and all that stuff. So it wasn't enough time to answer any question in full, in depth. And therefore I got many other questions after that. Like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? So let's tackle two of those biggest questions. One, the ecological, well, what I call the eco impact of this whole COVID crisis that we have placed ourselves into. Yes, there is a viral infection that's going around the world. Yes, we need to shut down. Yes, we need to be careful. But my question is, how are we gone crazy? And where are we going to go from here onwards? So eco, I mean economic and ecological. And we're going to go into the economics of financials, which are very obvious to everyone. There's a whole lot that needs to be done. Otherwise, we're in drastic, dire situations all around the world. I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about the real meaning of the word economics. Economic and ecology and economy really are part and parcel of the same term. Ecology we define as the study of the environment. It could be internal environment, could be external environment, and we can never distinguish between them. We have to work on them both together. Economy is management of resources, management of home. Eco is home. So ecology, study of home. Economy is management of the resources within that home. So the question really is, are we going crazy now? And will we continue going crazy, destroying all what we have started doing? Well, maybe started ages ago, but in the last 10 years, it's become a lot more intense, that activity. And namely the last year, it's changed. A lot of things have changed around the world to the better, where we've become very aware of our ability, not our awareness of our impact on the environment, which we have been for a long while, but our ability to change that. So things like no plastic bags in supermarkets, no extra plastic coverings for stuff you buy in shops and all these things, more eco-friendly and replaceable and reusable plastics or non-plastics in healthcare, for example. One thing, for example, in dentistry, we do have to use a lot of disposables all the time, which annoyed the heck out of me for years. So I was so grateful to find more and more items that could be ecological, as in they are either recyclable or break down more naturally and deal with those things in a better way. However, now we've gone all the way crazy. Let's go back to plastics. Let's cover everything in plastic. Let's use more gloves and more masks and more this for the whole, not just for within the healthcare industry. I mean, that's gone like crazy, batshit crazy almost lately, but also let's give it to everybody. Everybody has to wear masks. Everybody has to wear gloves, regardless of, or we'll discuss actually, maybe not regardless. Let's discuss whether they work or not. But primarily my question is, where the heck does all this go afterwards? We already had a problem for years that we've been trying to solve, and some of us have solved it, but still didn't get out, with plastic toothbrushes, billions of them being thrown away and all these things. And how do you make better brushes that are more eco-friendly, but also more functional? So I went and made that and all these things. Okay, we got rid of the toothbrush, we got rid of the plastic, and now we're dumping all this back more and more and more. And then there's the economy or management of resources and ecology of what we're using. So, okay, washing with soap, great, fantastic. And if that works, why is everything else so complicated then? Why do we have to use so much alcohol sanitizers that now every alcohol manufacturing company, which really they should cut down the manufacturing anyway, are now converting to making more alcohol sanitizers. So now we're going to use alcohol sanitizers for everybody. Well, how damaging is that to our ecology in terms of our hand ecology, our health ecology? We've been talking for years about let's not over sanitize everything. There's a difference between proper hygiene and washing your hands and washing your bums and washing your bodies properly and cleanly and repeatedly. That's important, and thank God that's becoming more and more pertinent right now. Let's do more of that. Hey, great idea. But let's not go overboard with what we've been talking about from before, where we're using like triclosan in soaps, antibacterial soaps, highly toxic to the environment, highly irritant to the human, disturbing our microbiome. Now, alcohol sanitizers, use them 20, 30 times, destroy human skin, destroy the microbiome, and so on and so forth. So these are the questions I want to raise and go, okay, well, how are we going to fix this? The need for hygiene has increased, great, but are we going crazy with it? Are we going stupid now? Not okay, because now we'll cause more diseases by destroying our microbiome, whether it's in our mouths, on our skin, hands, wherever. Basically, we're going to destroy a lot of our health, a lot more of our health than any virus could possibly do by itself. And it's important to always look at the science, yes, but science is something we develop, something we observe and document and act based upon as we go forward. Given that we're not biased towards only certain type of science and only my kind of science, but their kind of science is not okay, I will not even look at it. Very endemic in politics and in healthcare and in medicine, very endemic, that deep bias where I would not look at anything else. Like, as you've seen some of my other videos about ozone and vitamin C and everything else. There's no science. Well, no, there is science here. It is, no, but it's not validated. Well, it is validated, but not by your peers, but by some other peers. Can you just look at it? No. Can you try it? No. Do you have a solution? No. So if you don't have a solution and you're trying everything that you're trying to do in your own field, but you don't even try something that's already been proven, what does that say? Have we dropped the whole meaning of science itself? Like, we're just, okay, what does science mean? Science means documented knowledge, intelligence and innovation and invention. Discovery and invention by default, as I defined it in the book, is when somebody has a dream of using existing knowledge, existing intelligence, existing energy fields in new recombinations to create something better. It's not necessarily creating something totally new, but out of what we already know, how can we recombine that, observe the effects, and see how it goes? So to ignore any part of what we already know, starting with like thought experiments, everything was a thought experiment one day, everything was just a dream. Most of Albert Einstein's experiments were not experiments. He hardly, if ever, did any experiments in a lab. All of them were thought experiments that were later validated by other people, and so on and so forth. And he fought against the quantum theory by Niels Bohr, and like, this is spooky action. God doesn't play dice with the world and all these things. And he was a believer in God, by the way. That's a whole different aspect. The fact that he was negating that until his stuff was proven, and at the same time, Niels Bohr's quantum theories, and then Schrödinger and everybody else, and Richard Feynman and quantum thermodynamics, and all these other things were proven later with experiments. That's the evolution of science. We take what we know already, we take what somebody else has come up with as a new idea and evaluate it, see if it works, see if it doesn't work, and how we can we recombine them. And is this the pure truth, or is this the pure truth, or is the combination of both from different perspectives the real truth? We're seeing that right now with the COVID. Yes, there was a big scare. Yes, we didn't know what the hell is going on. Fine, we shut down. Most of the world shut down. Fine. Okay, how do we come out of this now that we know more? We know that it's not as bad as we thought. We know that it doesn't spread as bad as we thought it spreads. And even when it spreads, it's actually spreading quite gently in most parts of the world, quite gently, where most people who are being tested now, and that's what I said in one of those interviews. What is the most important thing? I said, test. Test for two things. One, who's been infected, and two, who's developed immunity, and is that immunity lasting or not? Because it is much more widespread, as we know now, than we ever thought. It's like, only those people who are getting sick are getting infected. No, there's millions and millions of others who've been infected before September and everywhere else until now. We don't even know when this thing started, and that will continue. So are they developing immunity? I'll come back to immunity in a minute. and all that. I already jumped the gun. So back to the ecology. Are we going to go crazy like we are right now? Or are we going to manage our resources and our intelligence based on what we know? The damage we've done in the past should never be repeated, let alone continued, let alone made worse, which is what we're doing right now, made worse. For example, with PPE, do we need all that PPE in medicine and dentistry? Well, if you're in ICU and you're dealing with infected patients and dealing with severe dramas, yes, you do. But not in everyday care, basically. And you can't stop caring and stop treating people because there is a potential for infection. You've got to look at what's humanistic, that's what humanity needs, as well as how to manage the resources that we've got. And how about we disinfect that. We've had UV lights for a long time to disinfect, and a lot of people are using them again. However, UV light is dangerous to the eyes, so you can't just look at it all the time. So it's going to be closed rooms or whatever. We've had chlorine dioxide, we've had ozone, always and now in rooms, in houses that are smelly and moldy, and after floods, or in chambers. So we actually made a chamber, as you've seen in the other videos, which is this one here. It's an ozone chamber to disinfect our PPE if it's not heavily soiled. So why keep throwing it away, And are those masks really useful for everybody to use, like they keep saying? Well, if you don't sneeze in people's faces, which you shouldn't do anyway, you should always cover that. That's not something new, guys, please. Then you should be fine. If you are sick, don't leave home. Don't go to have treatment. Not treatment. Don't have, like, for example, don't go to the dentist if you're really sick. But do go to the doctor and have treatment. People have stopped going to the doctors for having any other medical treatment. How crazy is that? Like, okay, well, we're reducing deaths from COVID-19, but we're increasing deaths from all other diseases and depressions and sadness and nobody's going to a doctor. That's crazy. So there's a difference between being sick and covering your face to protect others until you get over it, versus just covering your face all the time for any reason, and touching it with your hands and touching it with the gloves. This is why I said it doesn't work anyway. So covering this and then touching that, taking it off to make a call. Your gloves, most people will not have enough gloves anyway, so they'll be touching everything with the same glove, still having dirt on it, having everything else on it, touching everything and going back to their faces and their items and their phones. You're doing the same dirt again and again and again. And if you use new gloves every 5 or 10 minutes or every hour, here we go again. What is the ecological impact of that? Crazy. Please don't do that. Washing hands, yes. Washing your mouth properly, yes. When we get intubated, for example, this is a very pertinent issue again because of what's happening now. Other than the use of ventilators as a first kind of response, which thankfully is finally now being restudied and reduced, thankfully, but people like myself have been saying that from the beginning. Don't put everybody on a ventilator, because to put somebody on a ventilator, you've got to intubate them, which means you've got to put them under sedation, so you've got to induce coma. If they're already in coma, that's when they need a ventilator. Like my father was, like my sister was, before they passed away. That's a whole different story. And of course, we have ICUs for that. However, to just reactively, oh, they can't breathe properly, let's put an intubator, you're actually making things worse. Use a CPAP or a BiPAP, biphasic CPAP basically, or just an oxygen intubator, or use ozone IV that converts to oxygen, and you get the oxygen into the blood while killing the viruses and bypassing the lungs altogether. I talk about it in the other videos. But that intubate, so this is the fact of using the intubators and how risky they are, the intubation and the deep pressure on the lungs, and the fact that the person is in induced coma basically for days on end. If they survive with great misery. If they die alone and miserable. Neither is acceptable. However, what I want to say now about that ecology, about managing the ecology, and this has been studied for years and years. Again, this is what I'm trying to say here. We've kind of ditched all the science, everything out, all what we already know. Most pneumonias that happen in ICUs and hospitals, especially with long-term hospitalized people, comes because of stuff being shoved down their throat, whether it's instruments or, of course, the intubation going down, pushing all this rotting debris, all this bad biofilm from their mouths down into the airway. So a lot of the pneumonias are secondary pneumonia. Just look this up. Look it up. ICU-induced pneumonia or oral biofilm-induced pneumonia. So if you don't look after this while you're healthy, while you're a little bit sick, or when you're very sick or whatever, and in hospitals they don't clean their mouths anyway, and if they do, it's usually with toxic stuff that shouldn't be in the human body in the first place, you're just pushing that infection down. And that by itself will cause a reaction. That by itself will cause pneumonia, separate to the viral reaction that's happening on the side anyway. So please, please, please look after yourself, look after your ecology, and look after our economy of how we manage our resources all the time, well and better all the time. Now, in time of crisis, before the crisis, we should have been doing it, but anyway, after the crisis as well. Let's not go crazy. Let's not destroy our environment, which has cleaned itself up. It has shown us, Earth has shown us, guys, that when we, the naughty boys and naughty girls, the human critters of this earth, go to our rooms and shut up and quiet down, which is good for us in the first place, how beautifully clean Earth can make itself within weeks, literally within weeks. It has shown us that now anybody who has had any data about climate change and climate and our impact, can you see now? However, the scary part is that while we can notice that, what we're doing, or what the media and what many authorities are confusingly keeping us in that fear state, telling us do this more, that we're going to go all the way back to such a crazy place that'll be even worse than we were before. We'll have a more toxic environment, more toxic world, weaker bodies, weaker immune systems, weaker microbiomes that are protecting us against the bad bacteria and the bad viruses, and so on and so forth. So please be careful, please be intelligent, stick with the plan that we had initially, reduce our environmental impact, reuse. So anything that's plastic, it should only be the hard HDPE plastics that are refillable, reusable, non-toxic, and not infinitely, but multiple times recyclable. So things like that. Don't use plastics that are single use, basically, and cannot be recycled and cannot be reused and all that stuff. And whenever possible, like we've done, make refills that are in compostable sachets and so on and so forth. Continue that path we started. We made huge headways on a global scale. Let's not destroy all that, please. Otherwise, we will all be much worse off. Now, second point, and I'm going to take questions very soon. I can see a few people are just waving, which is really nice. But if you want to write any questions, please let me know. Actually, I'll just check. Am I getting any questions on Facebook here? On Instagram, I can just see people waving. Hello, guys. Hey, Muhammad. Hey, Musab. But I can't see questions. Where do we have questions? Okay, so far, no questions. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now immunizations and, well, developing what we call herd immunity. Yesterday in the news here in New Zealand, again, confusion. Every part of the story within the same news says something different, and kind of it's like nobody knows where we're going. Let's just blurb it all out. So I'll use this as a specific example because it did trigger me. First, during the first part of the news, they were saying that, and they showed somebody from WHO, that the testing methods are not all reliable, which may be correct. Not all of them as reliable as each other. That the immunological testing, that the people who have been tested, their serology testing, we have two different ways to test that, either something called a rapid test or an ELISA test. ELISA is enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays, which is done in a lab, or a rapid test that can be done in just like as a home kit. So people who were tested for their antibodies, as in they had an infection knowingly or unknowingly, they were exposed to the virus, and most of us have no idea that we've been exposed until you get that test. Oh yes, we have the antigens. So what they were saying is these tests are more and more reliable, but we're not 100% sure yet. However, we don't even know if people who have the antibodies are actually going to be immune to reinfection or not. So they said that, and I kind of agree with the fact that we don't know. So let's find out. That's what I'm saying. Are they immune? If they do get exposed again, and of course, how do you test that? You have to literally expose somebody who's seropositive for the antigen, expose them to the virus again with their permission, and see if they get infected or not. Let's do that. That has to be known. And on the other side, there's like a little bit while later, vaccines, the only thing that will save us. And there's a vaccine coming in 6 months, and other companies working within 18 months. Well, how could you say these two things in the same point and have it make sense? That is utter stupidity. First of all, with vaccines, you cannot have a vaccine done and ready and safe and everything else in 4, 6, 18 months. It is impossible. It is ridiculous. And if anybody comes up with that, please run away, because that's not true. First of all, we never had a vaccine for any type of coronavirus. This is the 7th or 8th one, the 8th version of coronaviruses. We've never had one. The common cold coronaviruses, Ebola, SARS, MERS, and this is SARS-2. We've never had one before. Not that they haven't tried, they tried and they failed. So suddenly, out of nothing, within 6 months, they will have it, they will make it, and they will test it, and they will check safety, and on tens of thousands of people over a period of time, just right here, a period of time, for a long period of time on tens of thousands of people, and check that it works, and check that it's safe, and check that all the adjuvants and the stuff that they put in there, which most of it shouldn't be in there in the first place, but and so on and so forth. Is that enough time? Well, the answer is not in 18 months. It takes 10 years at least. And that's not me saying that. That is experts like Dr. Offit and many others who have been making vaccines and have noticed and noted and took care of vaccine complications with like the polio vaccines that caused polio, with the measles vaccines in the 1960s that actually increased susceptibility for measles and death, the dengue vaccine that caused more what's called antigen enhanced reaction, basically, to the actual vaccine itself, or caused by the vaccine that's been introduced, and now it makes the virus more viral if and when they get exposed the second time to it. We're trying to protect here, guys. We're not trying to cause more damage. The whole goal, the whole talk about this is save lives, save lives, save lives. Okay, well, we're not going to inject with something that has the potential, even knowing that historically we've had that multiple times, to cause more harm or more harm long term by making the body's reaction more enhanced towards it. So it's antibody dependent enhancement. That's literally the term that they use. So vaccines will come after a long time. In the meantime, what do we have is immunization, and this is what I think should happen anyway, is immunization from naturally developed antibodies by people who've been exposed already. That's what we need to study. Who has been exposed, and how can we expose more healthy people carefully to develop those antibodies, which means test everyone. Yes, test for the virus. Not some people or only a few people or who are sick. Test everyone in all the populations. Who has it, who's exposed right now, and to be able to manage them if they're already sick and they have the virus. Well, that's high risk. Let's take care of them before they need intubation and ventilation, all that horrible, nasty stuff. I'm not going to talk about treatments here again. Already mentioned that enough, ozones and whatever. People who are healthy, great. You have the virus, stay so you're not infectious, stay away from everyone else. Let's test you again with the immunoassays, the ELISA testing or that rapid testing for the immunoassay for the antibodies. Yes, you have the antibodies, great. You're safe now. Let's check you again in a year or two. Make sure you still have those antibodies. We don't even know these things. I'm saying let's test them so that we can know. Antibodies means right now you're immune. Great. Do they stay for a year or two? Because this is the contradiction. You always have to have a juxtaposition for everything. This is the contradiction here. We don't know, and the experts are saying it, and I'm saying it again. We don't know how many people have the antibodies, as in they've been exposed. The more we test, the more we find out, which is a great thing. But we don't know if those antibodies last, because not all viruses or bacteria can be vaccinated against. That's given the vaccine is safe and all these things. That's a whole different discussion. I just mentioned a little bit about it before, but let's not go there right now. Given the vaccine is safe, the herd immunization is safe, and I hope we're going to do this properly this time. Does it last? With many of them, they don't last, so you're going to do it again, which adds more risks. as my sister was sick every time because she was sick and nobody ever asked about her risk factors from her many specialists and doctors who were looking after her before she passed away. Every time she had the flu vaccine, she got really sick until I said, no more flu vaccine. Not for her, not for any of us. You have to understand who's at risk and who's not at risk of not just getting the flu, but of reacting to the vaccine before you just keep giving it willy-nilly. So anyway, let's assume that we have made a safe vaccine that doesn't have the whole virus or a damaged virus. It has just markers, the protein markers from the virus. Still, does the induction of antibodies cause a long-term immunity or not? We don't even know that. So what the hell are we talking about a vaccine that we don't know if given the safety is done, that it will work long-term or not? We need to study the people who have those antibodies. And if we're going to do that, why don't we study exactly at the same time their blood transfusion, their serum transfusions, concentrate those antibodies and inject them to everybody else? Why can't we immunize each other naturally? Not necessarily let's get the virus and eat it and lick it and all that stuff. I'm not saying that let's have COVID parties. Don't do that. That's ridiculous. But how about we have intelligence? We have so much knowledge and so much technology and so much recombinant DNA testing, and we have so much stuff that we can do these days that we couldn't do 10, 20, 30 years ago. Why don't we use that? Why don't we concentrate those antibodies and give them to everybody else? They're already made by a human, give them to other humans, and test that. That's already herd immunity right there. How about we, like I said, just use parts of the proteins, the signal to the body that, hey, this is coming. Develop your immunity to that. Why does it have to be a whole virus or a deadened virus or anything like that? And by the way, the word deadened virus or killed virus is actually ridiculous because you can't kill something that is not alive. So we can't kill viruses because they're not alive. You can kill bacteria, you can kill humans because they're living, and then when they die, they're killed. A virus is not a living organism. We don't kill it. We either destroy it and denature it, or we weaken its efficacy to bind, but that's not killing it. It can still bind and it can still cause an immune reaction. And at all points in time, going back to the self-protection part, other than protecting your mouth, oxidizing agents, ozone, I talked about that enough in other videos. How about we make invisible gloves that are nurturing? So instead of environmentally toxic gloves to the environment, and actually they don't protect anyway because they protect you while you're wearing them, but you're touching everything. As soon as you take them off, everything's infected anyway. How about we make creams like what I've been working on and waiting for the testing that should be done within the next week or two now after the shutdown. Creams with oils and lipids and things like totorol and other antivirals, known and effective antivirals against all viruses because they bind to the lipid layer and break it down, as well as bad bacteria, including MRSA, the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, the flesh-eating bacteria that you get in hospitals if you stay there for too long, and all these things. We already know these things work. That science is already existing, not my science. It's already existing there. Why don't we put those into a combination with beeswax and oils, exactly like what I've done. I've made all that stuff here. You rub it on, it stays on like an invisible glove. Kills everything that's bad, but doesn't harm you or harm the environment. It actually nurtures you and nurtures your skin and nurtures your body, and also it's good for the environment at the same time. Why don't we do more things like that? Why do I have to ask 100 times about who can test it for me, who can help me fund this, when we're going crazy with destroying the environment? And there's many people like me. I'm just giving myself as an example because, hey, here I am talking to you. Nobody's controlling what I'm saying. So with vaccination, I thought I spoke enough. So I'm not anti-vaccines. I'm pro-proper use of the word immunize. Let's drop the word vaccination. Let's use the word immunization, because that's what we're trying to do, is induce group immunization safely. How about we do that? We have the intelligence, we have the knowledge, we've done the mistakes, we've caused the fights, we've done the name calling, enough name calling, enough anti-vaxxer, pro-vaxxer, blah, 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 blah. This is the time to collaborate and corroborate all the science, all the mistakes, all the good things, what we've done in the past, what we've done recently, what are we going to do from here on to help humanity heal, be safe, stay safe, and get better. So with that in mind, I think I'll just check again. Any questions there? Nope. I'm looking upside down at the... so no questions. Anything else that we need to go through? What did I have here? I had some notes written here that I was like, we'll talk about this, about that. Recombinant DNA, I spoke about that briefly. PSRs, antibody dependent. What did I want to talk about otherwise? I think that's really good. If anyone wants to tap, oh, thank you, Victoria. Thank you for your comment there. That is beautiful. I will wait for another minute, and if nobody has any questions, I shall leave you with love and with respect and with dignity. Make sure you look after yourself, look after your family, look after your world, look after your humanity. Give mercy because you need mercy. I need mercy. Everybody needs mercy. So we give what we need. We give it first so that we can receive it back from each other. What goes around comes around. That's always the case. This is not a race against each other. This is a journey of one race together. If that hasn't been obvious to you before, it should be obvious right now. It's not a fight against each other. It's a fight together for knowledge, for caring, for intelligence, reapplied and recombined to innovate and make better use of our resources, our economy, basically, so that we can all win. Otherwise, if we lose, we all lose, as you can see. And the billionaires are not here to save us, as you can all tell. I won't go into politics or conspiracy theories or anything like that. That's a whole different talk. By the way, the word conspiracy theory, what does the word conspire mean? Everything's so misused these days. To conspire is to come together. Come together. Spire comes from inspire, inspirare, breath, to inspire, the breath. So come together to inspire, come together to cause change. So to conspire is it's a beautiful word. Why don't we conspire together to serve each other better and to create a better world, a world of humanity that we can live in better together, that's a more fair, more calm, more peaceful, more clean, and stop pissing in our own pool or shitting in our own backyard, as we've been doing as humans, for our own sake. How about we do that? So let's conspire for better rather than call each other, he's a conspirator, she's a conspirator, blah, 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 he's anti this, he's pro that. Put it all together, put into perspective, give us juxtapositions. How many people die from this or that or that or that? How can we help people live better, die better, with respect, with dignity? How can we move together intelligently and intentionally and with better imagination? That's really my message. A question here came through from Victoria. How can we get your messages through to the government? They need to hear you. Thank you. Amen. I would like to ask you that question, ask everybody else out there that question. If you can help me get this to government agencies, to so-called, not authorities necessarily. I don't like the word authority because that I am my own author, you are your own author of your life. Together we author this event, this observed event, this quantum field collapse that we're observing as our reality. But let's say they're so-called leaders or authorities in our fields that are making decisions. How can this message get to them? Well, share this, let them know. There's many solutions. There's many things that are totally ignored out of bias, I would say. Not inability to understand. It's ignorance as in just not knowing and not willing to know. Let's put it that way. And yet they're science proven and common sense proven. And if not, at least test them now. Why are you testing this but not testing that? That's my question. So help me get that message out, and I'll love you for it forever. And humanity will be grateful for you. I think with that, I shall leave you with love. Always aim to look better, feel better, and be better. Like this. Always aim to look better, feel better, and be better. Thank you. Take care. Love you all.